Queen's campus boasts several haunted buildings, some of which are more well-known than others. The first building in question is the Agnes Etherington Art Center. It is thought to be one of the most haunted spots on campus and is said to be haunted by the building's namesake, Agnes Etherington, who lived in the building for over 70 years before donating it to Queen's. All manner of strange things have happened in the art center. People have often felt a presence in the room with them, or seen the shadowy form of a woman passing through the walls. One night, a woman was closing up the building and was turning out the lights upstairs when she heard a woman's voice telling her that she had forgotten one. She went back and found that, indeed, a lamp was still on, so she turned it off and walked back to the front doors. As she walked through 3 rooms of the old house, she could distinctly feel and hear someone walking just behind her and watching her in the darkness. This story takes place farther down the waterfront, close to Queen's University. In the spring of 1957, a Queen's student was walking along the path near the heating plant with her boyfriend when she ran into an elderly woman she knew quite well from her workplace, who we will call Mrs. Gray. The student was surprised to see her because Mrs. Gray had taken several months off work to care for her husband, who was dying in the Kingston General Hospital. Mrs. Gray looked terrible and told the student that she had gone to visit her husband at the hospital across the street, but the elevator in Victory Wing was broken, and so she couldn't get up to see him. The student gave what condolences she could, but ended up going on her way. Throughout the whole conversation, Mrs. Gray spoke only to the student she knew, and did not acknowledge the student's boyfriend. About a week later, the student was reading a Queen's monthly magazine when she came across an obituary for both Mrs. Gray and her husband. It said that Mrs. Gray had died 3 weeks earlier, which would have been 2 weeks before the meeting on the waterfront path. The student went to the hospital to find out what had happened, and learned that Mrs. Gray had been to visit her husband one last time, and was told that he was going to be dying quite soon. In a state of grief, she walked out of the hospital, straight into Lake Ontario, where she drowned herself. The student found another strange thing, which was that the elevator in Victory Wing was indeed broken, but that it had only become broken since the time of Mrs. Gray's death. Constructed in 1839, Summerhill, as we know it today, was originally intended to be the country villa of Archdeacon George O'Kill Stewart. When Kingston became the capital of Canada for a short time, it was used as a boarding house for the members of the Legislative Assembly. Queen's University purchased the building in 1854, and for many years it was the university's only building. It later housed the medical school at Queen's, and was also the site of many of the following incidents. For those of you that have been on our original Haunted Walk, you will know that the Queen's medical students in those days had to provide themselves with their own cadavers for their studies. There were very few legal ways that they could obtain the corpses they needed, and so they often had to resort to either stealing a body of their own or buying them from the professional gangs of grave robbers that existed at that time. They would try and get the bodies as soon as possible after they were buried, so that they would still be fresh and easy to work with. The bodies would end up here, and it is down in the basement of Summerhill that the dissection of these bodies by the medical students would take place. The local authorities raided Summerhill on numerous occasions in the hopes of finding a stolen body, but when the police were spotted, the bodies would quickly be hidden under the porch through the use of a concealed door. Occasionally, the police were successful, but not always for long. There is at least one case on record wherein a body was recovered by the police and then stolen back again by the students several times over before it was finally buried in peace.